Hey mini enthusiasts, how you doing? Welcome back. I hope you're all well and I hope you're having a great day. So a few weeks ago in a community post, I asked you what sort of content, what sort of videos you wanted to see in up and coming episodes. And by far the biggest winner, the most amount of votes, was for some driving videos with my minis. So we're going to start off today, we're going to start off with Piao, my Rover Cooper Sport 5. And we're going to do a bit of a walk round, a bit of a driving video, bit of a 0 to 60 performance test so we can compare the other cars, and let's just have a bit of fun and see how it goes. So there we go, outside in the sun. So Piao, it's called Piao because of the registration number and because it's as fast as a bullet. And the keen-eyed amongst you will notice the press car was very similar to this actually. It was the same model car, so it was a Rover Mini Cooper Sport 5 built by John Cooper Garages, and the reg number was P1110WW. So this reg number is very close, and obviously that's a private registration number, so I chose to put that registration number on it. So it's pearlescent amaranth, which is this pearlescent purple colour. It's a very, very nice colour. Now this car, believe it or not, as you look at it now, is pretty much completely standard. So this is how it came from John Cooper Garages. So this particular car, this model of car, is very, very rare. There are only allegedly 30 of them ever made in the world. There's no documented registrar of the cars. However, some books and certainly some people I know from John Cooper Garages know that there are only about 30 made. So these cars originally were converted from brand new at John Cooper Garages. So this would have been a Rover Sports Pack 1275 Mini Cooper, and before it was registered it would have gone down to John Cooper Garages. They would have done their conversion and upgrades on the car, and then the car would have been sold as brand new in this specification. So as you can see, we've got the 13-inch mini white light wheels. They were standard. The big wide arches were standard. The colour was standard, or as an optional extra as a colour. The 4 front spotlights, which are 2 driving lights and 2 fog lights at the front, they were standard. If we look inside of the car, so there's a few extra features on here which were part of the John Cooper accessory packs. So we've got the John Cooper centre caps, John Cooper dust caps, and when we look inside the car we obviously have the 3 instrument dashboard. That was a standard feature. However, the door furniture, door cappings, alloy door handles, they were all John Cooper extras. Now, one thing, that a subtle difference that you'll notice straight away on this car, it has a 5-speed gearbox. So this was the only mini, production mini, ever made with a 5-speed gearbox. It's a jackknife 5-speed gearbox, and I'll talk a little bit more about how it drives and the differences that makes in a moment when we give it a drive. But inside the car, it's very clean and tidy. Believe it or not, this car has done 105,000 miles, so it's had plenty of use. It's certainly not a garage queen. And down on the floor here, we can see the plaque that designates that it's a John Cooper car, John Cooper Garages, built in Ferring Street, Ferring in Worthing. And you can see its car number 97S17. So I think that means this was a 17th Sport 5 or one registered that year cars built. There are differences. So my John Cooper conversion racing green, it says conversion number at the top. This says car number. So that lets you know that it was built by John Cooper Garages. When we move to around the back of the car, we can see it's got the John Cooper Sport 5, Cooper S Sport 5 decals, and we have the very nice Jan Speed stainless steel exhaust system. The SI badge on the back indicates that it's a John Cooper Garage's SI specification Mini. These are actually Ford Fiesta badges. There was a Ford Fiesta SI in I think it was around about the mid-90s. That's actually a Ford badge, and the red enamel Cooper badges indicate that it's a John Cooper built car as opposed to a Rover. And we get then the alloy Monza fuel cap, and then aside from that, bodywork wise, it's a pretty standard Rover Cooper with the big arches. So now let's take a look under the bonnet and talk a bit about the engine specification, which is what makes these John Cooper cars very special. So originally, as a Rover Cooper, this car would have had 63 brake horsepower. With the John Cooper engine upgrades, this car now delivers 85 brake horsepower in the SI specification. So it has a polished and ported cylinder head with enlarged valves. It has a ported inlet manifold and throttle body modifications. They also adjusted the fuel pressure regulator to increase the fuel pressure. It has 1.5:1 ratio roller tip rockers. It has an LCB long centre branch exhaust manifold system on it, and it has the K&N air filter. Now that all equates to around about a 30% power increase, and it also gives a much better throttle response, which we'll see when we drive the car in a moment. You'll see on this car it's actually got the S-Works inlet trumpet for the air filter. That wouldn't be original. That was a later fitment on the S-Works specification cars, which were allegedly 90 brake horsepower. And finally, let's take the car for a drive in a moment, but I just wanted to show you, so we have the original purchase receipt of the car, and as you can see, from new, this car was £14,584. So it had some extras on there, like I say, the black leather upholstery, the pearlescent paint, and the rest would have been the cost of the John Cooper accessories and upgrades that come with the car. But this car, registered as brand new as a Rover or John Cooper Sport 5. We've also got the conversion certificate, and we have the ratios for the gearbox. So anyone that's interested, the final drive ratio is 3.44. However, we have 5 gears now. Now, gears 1 to 4 are pretty much the same as a standard Rover Cooper, but you'll notice the 5th gear has a ratio of 0.853, which actually means it's a bit of an overdrive gear. So driving this around in the first 4 gears are absolutely brilliant, and 5th is pretty much just a cruising gear. You just put it in there when you get on the motorway to I guess it probably improves the fuel consumption a bit, lessens noise, and just makes it a bit of it's more of a touring car. Okay, so let's take it for a drive. Let's just firstly see how it goes through the gears. Above 5,000 RPM, it tends to get a bit wheezy above 5,000 RPM, but it has plenty of torque and plenty of power in that sort of 3,000 to 5,000 RPM range to make it fun to drive. The engine note itself is pretty characteristic of an A series. It has a nice rasp from that exhaust. The only thing I would say is the engine is always a little bit rattly from the valve train, and that is because it's running those 1.5:1 roller tip rockers, and they require a slightly bigger tappet clearance than the standard tappets on the car. So you just pick up that little bit of rattling from the top end of the engine, but to be honest, you can live with it. You kind of get used to it. I don't know how well it picks up on the video, you might not be able to hear it, but it's always there. It's not quite as quiet as my other Rover Cooper, which is completely standard. So as I say, it's quite responsive. We're doing 3,000 RPM, 4th gear, 50-ish miles an hour now. If we drop it a cog and give it a boot full, it picks up and pulls quite nicely. And there we are, national speed limit. We better slow down a bit now. But it is great fun to drive this car. Have a bit of fun away from the junction here when we can get out. Gear there, we drop it into 4th, and if we want to quieten things down now, we can just drop it into 5th gear. Bit of a bumpy road this, but we're doing 70 miles an hour and we are doing just over 3,000 RPM. It's about 3,100 and it's quite nice to cruise along in that gear. So let's try and find a nice quiet straight flat road that we can do a bit of a 0 to 60 test, and we'll use the same road and the same app for testing in each of the cars so it's fair and comparable. We're going to try the 1/4 mile time now. This road goes around the corner and then it's pretty much straight, so it's not ideal, but at least we've got the same starting point each time. So we'll just get the app set up. Nice mini owner there. And we are ready to go. So in 3, 2, 1. So let's have a look at the time. 12.95 seconds. Now I don't know what it was from factory. I'll check and I'll put the time in somewhere. I suspect it was somewhere around about 12 seconds though. So I'm quite pleased with that. It's not a perfect bit of road, but when it comes to checking the other cars, we'll do it with the same setup, same piece of road, same application, so it should give hopefully a fair comparison. Okay, let's have a bit of a play round and talk a little bit about how the car handles. So it's got those big 13-inch wide wheels on it, and I've got to be honest, they are not the best. They're not the best for handling. They've got a huge amount of grip, but in some ways, to have a bit of fun in a Mini, you don't want too much grip. You want to be able to slide it around a bit, get it on the edge, but those 13-inch wheels and tyres really are too grippy for this car. It doesn't have enough power.
Like I say, it's got 85 brake horsepower, which is reasonably sprightly, but the tyres have far more grip than the car needs, which means it, you know, you can really pull it round roundabouts and into corners, but it's not quite as much fun to drive. The wheels tend to tramline a lot as well, so where you get divots and dips in the road, especially where the lorries have been, it tends to drag you across the road and pull you about a bit. Don't get me wrong, I love the look of the 13-inch wheels on the sports pack arches, and the overall look of the car is fantastic. But for me, I've driven lots and lots and lots of Minis, and I think, in my personal opinion, the best compromise in terms of handling, grip and performance is 12-inch wheels. 10-inch for the purists. 10 is probably the most fun, but I think in terms of balance overall, a nice set of 12s with a decent set of tyres on them is pretty much unbeatable. However, that said, you can still have lots of fun in a Mini with 13-inch wheels on. Gearbox really comes into its own. So we're doing 70 miles an hour now, indicated on the speedo, and revs wise about 3,700 RPM, which is pretty comparable with some standard Minis, to be honest. But what we're able to do now with that long fifth, that overdrive fifth, is just drop it into fifth, and we come back to around probably about 3,100 RPM, and it's just quite a nice tourer like that. So, you know, it's quite comfortable keeping up with traffic, and when I find a gap, it still has plenty of power if you want to overtake in fifth. And it still pulls pretty well. The speed there, but it's quite comfortable to overtake cars that are doing 70 miles an hour without making the engine scream too much. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that little run out in the Cooper Sport 5. Hope it gave you a bit more detail about what the car is and how it goes. Doing the 0 to 60 times was a bit of a challenge, to be honest. Just traffic on the road, and yeah, you don't want to be buzzing past cyclists and things like that. So trying to find a nice quiet road where there wasn't traffic around, people around, cars around, houses around, was actually quite difficult. And what I was trying to do was screen record on my phone of the speedometer, but it didn't work out. Maybe I'll try and get it working for the next videos. But I'm pretty happy with that. 12.95 seconds 0 to 60.
you know, it's a Mini, it's a 60+ year old design, so yeah, it's not bad at all, I think. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, please do consider subscribing. And next up, I think we'll either do Sprout the Rover Cooper, which is completely standard, so that'll be interesting to look at the comparison. And before the Racing Green gets stripped down for restoration, I think I'd like to try the Racing Green as well. That's a 1 litre 998cc, so it's quite a bit different from these 1275 cars, but it has the John Cooper conversion on, which should give it around about 60 brake horsepower. So it'd be quite interesting to see how that stands up to a 1275, and also compare it with it after its restoration, after we've done a load of work to the engine, after we've fully restored the car. So once again, thanks for joining this week, and catch you again next time.